Authors and actors auditions are tomorrow, Tuesday, September 21st, and Thursday, September 23rd. After school until 5 p.m. Please only come to one audition per day. Please come to only one audition day. Please come ready to have some fun and play theater games and read from scripts. The following students are celebrating birthdays this week. Aiden Cole, Nathan Schomer, Lele Cesaris, Andrew Tyrrell, Wesley Sari, Anthony Sari, Haley Bramsky, Evan O'Keefe, Ethan Miller, and Jacob Williams. Happy birthday to those students. Today is an A day. Please all stand to say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I gotta take attendance, like she said. So you should be working on the warm up over here, and we'll get going in a little bit after I get attendance done. So we're missing. Okay. No Corbin today? Okay.
I didn't see him.
Thank you.
I was here today.
All right. Danny, who's in front of you? It's Jacob. Wow. Oh man, 6 people. All right. Yeah, all right. Welcome. Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Let's first of all, I forgot to do something on Friday. Who doesn't know who they have for IE today? So if you're in my IE, I didn't tell you. Okay, all right, we're gonna quickly do that. The rest of you, just hang tight for a second. So let's see. All right, somebody keep your hand raised. Okay. Carter, you're in Mrs. Hanson and Mrs. Pulvermacher. You know where that is? Okay. Danny, you're in Hanson and Pulvermacher. Okay. Write this down if you need to. Okay. Abel, you're in Mrs. Barr. Okay. Dougie, you're in Mr. Mantle. Okay. Aiden, you are in Mrs. Holterman. Cool. You need to write that down? No? Michaela, you're in Mrs. Johnson. Olivia, you are in Mr. Pry. You know where that is? Okay, does everybody else know? Oh, Weston. Sorry about that one. Weston, you are in Mr. Pry. Okay. Oh, Faith. Faith is in Mr. Pry. Oh, Josh, you're in Mrs. Hanson and Mrs. Pulvermacher. Know where that is? Right next to Mrs. Johnson. That room. If you need to write it down, write it down. Mr. Frank over there. You are in Mrs. Holterman. Know where that is? Across from Mr. Pry. Okay. We switch IEs just about every 2 weeks just to get you moving around the building, seeing new teachers, seeing new people. Plus the teachers like to get to know. We like to get to know you a little bit. And that's if you get your work done and turned in, you can keep going to different IEs. But if you have things like, say you owe Mrs. Johnson like 4 math masteries or something, she's probably going to call you into her IE more often than not. Okay, does that make sense? So if you turn all your work in, you get to go to different IEs, you know, kind of see the way it works in different for different teachers. Okay, and you see different people. Okay, but if you owe work, that's when you have to like kind of buckle down and get that done. Okay. All right. Today's an A day. It's National Pepperoni Pizza Day. It's the best kind. We are doing it's Monday, September 20th. Target 8. Obtain, evaluate, and communicate information. We're obtaining information about cells today. Hopefully we get to it. So we can obtain information about the building blocks of all living things. Cells make up all living things. And it's important to understand how that works on a cellular level. And then I will know I'm successful when I can name the 3 main parts of all cells. By the end of today, hopefully, if I keep us on task and speed up, well, not speed up, but like just keep us on task, we should be able to name 3 main parts of all cells. Some of you might know some main parts of a cell already if you've researched that a little bit. Okay, so today's target is target 8. And let's go to the first question during the warm-up. Oh, I didn't put a period at the end there. A car is considered a living organism because it moves during its lifetime. True or false? False. Thank you. It is false. Why is a car not a living thing? Yeah.
Because it's not alive, it causes bacteria.
Sure, but why though? It moves.
Because it doesn't have a heartbeat, it doesn't have the organs.
Bacteria don't have a heartbeat.
It's man-made.
It's man-made. I like where you're going. Avery, what's one reason why?
It doesn't grow.
Cars do not grow through their lifespan. What else? Why else is a car not living? Yeah.
It doesn't like eat anything.
Doesn't eat, okay.
It can't reproduce.
Can't reproduce, very good. It's not made out of cells. Okay, good. There you go. So yeah, it does move, like I said, but that does not mean that it is living. Is it possible for a dog? It is possible for a dog to reproduce a cat as its offspring. True or false? False, right? Living organisms can only reproduce more of the same organism, right? Okay. Anybody got any brags or bummers from this weekend? Let's see. I went to an apple orchard. What was that?
I said, I swear, if you said you're gonna go to Applebee's.
No, I don't even.
If it was Applebee's, I'm not sure if that's a brag or a.
That's exactly. You keep guessing. All right. Go ahead, Brock.
My left eye kind of blew up on Sunday.
What happened?
I was trying to get an eyelash out of it, and I rubbed it too much, and then
Oh boy.
it started swelling. Once I got some eye drops in it, it started healing, so we didn't go to the ER.
Okay.
But I still get some eye.
Okay. I'm glad you're
Sounds like
here,
fun.
able to see. All right. Anybody else brag or bummer from this weekend before we get into our stuff? All right.
I have a dumb question for you kids, quick.
Mr. Schultz has a question.
In Mrs. Johnson's class in math, do you guys have anybody here have Mrs. Johnson for math? Okay, you're taking the iReady today, but she's got a sub. So to take the iReady, you need to know how to get into ClassLink. But the sub can't reset your password, but Mr. Dayton can.
That's correct.
So does anybody not know how to get into ClassLink? So we can reset it right now quick so that it's done. All right, let's get yours to reset real quick.
Who do we got there?
You're in my class too, and I'm having a moment.
Which is it? Abel? Abel?
Abel.
Okay. All right. There we go.
All right,
Let's go right.
and it might be that yours has been a little bit messed up.
My class.
Sorry, just sorry to take your time, but I just
No,
figured I'd mow
this
the lawn
is-
for
yeah.
Mr. Michikowski.
This is important. Abel, and I want to click him.
Yeah, manage selected.
Manage selected. I want to. All right. I'm gonna do your
That's weird,
right.
but it used to let them full on reset it, and now it's just giving a temporary password. You can
Oh,
only
wait.
use the last kid that we had. Oh, just put in one like Wapaka or something.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then confirm. So Abel, when you go with Mr. Michikowski, just type in that for your password.
Okay. I'll write it down for you.
All right, and if it doesn't work, We'll have to figure it out, but it should
Tell Mr.
normally.
Finchikowski to call me.
All right, I can reset Abel's too, which is,
Yeah, right. So that's your password. Your username is your first five, 27.
first I've left.
Oh, yeah, yep.
All right,
Okay.
well,
Thank
thank
you.
you everybody for keeping us on our toes here.
Yeah.
Trying to mow the lawn for later.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Have a great day.
You too.
Alrighty, so now with that being said, we're gonna get into some textbook work. We're obtaining a lot of information today, so I need you to get the textbook from below your desk and throw it up and turn it to page. We're gonna go with page 30 and 31. Now, we were supposed to do page 20 and 21 last week, but I did not. We had more important things to get to, so we're gonna try to get to that as well. Let's see. 30 and 31. Yep. I gotta get this going. Okay. I will get. So, just as a quick refresher, everybody, you should have your science notebook out. You should, on the top right corner of that, well, I guess on the top, I guess I'm not that picky about where you write it. We should have your name on it. You should have pages 30 and 31, and we are doing questions 1 through 6. So write that down, please, so that when the quiz comes at the end of the quarter, you're able to quickly and easily find it and not stress about it, because it's not something that we should be stressed about if you just do these small organizational skills. Okay. Page 30. Got a science notebook? You do? All right, get it up. Pencil? Yeah. Anybody else need a pencil? Oh, dang. I sharpened it and it got worse. There you go. All right. All right. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. So as you can see, I'm trying to keep us on track up here. I'm trying to be more organized this year. We've done these two together. They're checked off, right? We have not done this one. We're about to do this one right here, pages 30 and 31. Everybody with me here? Okay. And then these will be later this week. Okay. We got a lot this week, but they should be starting to go pretty quickly. Okay. Now remember how this goes. You can be working on the questions, right? We call this being able to search and, well, you can call it whatever you want. You got to be able to search, first read the questions and find where you can find them in the text, okay? Looking for keywords, all right? If you would like to read, I'll call on you if you'd like to. Otherwise, I won't make you do it. But I will just try to keep you on your toes here. So stay focused, okay? 1-6, this is on page 30, everybody. Page 30. Where do organisms come from is the question that we're attempting to answer today. Where do organisms come from? Okay. Now, our objective or our main goal today is to recognize that all life comes from existing life. Very important concept. All life comes from life that already existed. Okay. You might think that's a duh, but people didn't always know this. All right. Key terms: spontaneous generation. Spontaneous generation. Anyone ever heard the word spontaneous before? Okay. What does it mean if someone is spontaneous? Maybe you've heard it, maybe you don't know the exact definition. Go ahead, Avery.
Like something if somebody like does it like out of the blue, like there's a spontaneous person unexpected, they're like living in that.
Bingo, that's awesome. Out of the blue is just about as good as I could say. Out of the blue. Doing something, yeah, it wasn't necessarily planned or happened by happenstance. Spontaneous. Okay, and then generation. What does generation mean? If I generate something, what did I do? Yeah.
It's like growing it.
Yeah. Okay, so spontaneous generation, I'll read the definition, is the idea that living things come from non-living things. Now, we just read the objective above that says life comes from existing life. So spontaneous generation, you got to be doing kind of a, thinking emoji here, like, huh? Okay, so let's read about spontaneous generation. All right, here's the first paragraph. Spontaneous generation. Do you believe that organisms can grow from straw? Hundreds of years ago, people believed that mice came from straw. They also believed that maggots and flies grew from rotting meat. Maggots are a stage in the life cycle of a fly. The idea that living things come from non-living things is called spontaneous generation. In the 1600s, most people believed in spontaneous generation. So 420 years ago, people believed in spontaneous generation. They thought that, there was meat there, and maggots appeared. The maggots appeared from that meat, or that straw produced those mice. Is that true? No, right? We know that living things must come from living things. All right. So spontaneous generation, if you break down the word like we talked about, spontaneous, like Avery said, kind of means out of the blue, and generation is like creating something. So these things, they believed in spontaneous generation, that things could just be created just like that. Is that true? No, right? It's got to come from living things. All right, next paragraph. I'm going to read you about an interesting cat. His name is Francesco Redi. Francesco Redi was an Italian doctor. He lived during the 17th century, so the 1600s. Redi did not think that living things came from non-living things. He's like, this can't be true. He thought that organisms could come only from other organisms. To test his hypothesis, Redi performed an experiment. Hey, sound familiar, right? We had hypotheses when we were doing our Cheeto and sugar water labs, right? He's like, this is how science is done. He's like, all right, I need to find something out. I got to make a hypothesis and then perform an experiment. Okay. So Francesco Redi, an Italian doctor, and he's like, this can't be true, man. Mice can't be coming from straw. Maggots, they can't just spontaneously appear. All right. The next paragraph is called Redi's experiment. Anybody want to take a stab at that? Otherwise, I can keep going. Go ahead, Brock.
Thanks.
Redi.
Performed 2 experiments. First, he put different meat into several jars. He left half of the jars uncovered. He covered the other jars with lids. The setups for Redi's experiments are shown in figure 1-18.
All right, good. Stop right there. Everybody move your eyes down to figure 1-18. Okay? He put different types of meat in different jars. Okay? And he put lids on some of them and did not on others. Experiment 1 right here. We have day 1, open jar, and day 5, the open jar. What has appeared on the meat? Maggots and flies. Okay? But if you go to B, we have meat. We have the lid. Now, I don't know if the lid looked like this in the 1600s, but anyway, on day 1, no maggots. Day 5, no maggots. Makes sense? So he's like, all right.
Couldn't get out.
Okay. After a few days, Redi observed worm-like animals on the meat in the uncovered jars. There were no worm-like animals in the jars with lids. Okay. So this is his control, right? We talked about, so we're conducting an experiment. He had to have one where the jar was open and one where the jar was closed. Why? Why? Go ahead, Avery.
To see if the maggots just spontaneously generated off the meat, or if it was like they were attracted to the meat.
Right, there you go. Okay, good. And he had to have this lid one there just to prove, like, okay, there's my control. And there's this one that leaves it open to them. This one, so that we can narrow it down to what actually happens. Okay? Now, let it focus a little bit. Radie did a second experiment to test if fresh air was needed. He left half of the jars uncovered again. The other half were covered with mesh, like cheese paper, cheesecloth. After a few days, the uncovered jars had the worm-like animals. Again, the meat in the jars with mesh did not have the worm-like animals. The uncovered jars, labeled A and C in figure 1-18, were Radie's controls in both experiments. So the uncovered jars were the controls, okay? These were the controls. Had to show it just so that we can have that variable there, all right? Now, if you look at experiment number 2, uncovered jar, day 1, no maggots yet. Day 5, yes, uncovered, we have maggots and flies. Now, jar D, he put the mesh over it, right? Day 1, of course, there's no maggots, no flies. Day 5, are there any maggots? No, there's flies around the jar. Why do you think that is? They can smell the rotting meat, right? And that's where they want to lay their eggs, okay? Okay. So the uncovered jars were controls. The worm-like animals that Radie observed were maggots. The maggots hatched from eggs that flies had laid on the meat. Radie showed that maggots did not come from the meat. Today, scientists know that flies often lay eggs on spoiled meat. The meat is food for the maggots. Scientists know that all organisms come from other organisms of the same kind. Okay? And you probably, maybe you've seen this, anyone seen or driven by some roadkill or walked by some roadkill, like dead deer? Ew, yeah, it doesn't smell so great to begin with. But what do you often see buzzing around that roadkill? Flies, right? And they lay their eggs on those decaying animals. Okay? That's why, and flies are not very sanitary things. You don't like to have them in your house, right? They're, yuck. But yeah, that's how they survive. They lay their eggs on rotting, spoiled meat. Okay? Moving on. Ooh, this is a good one. This is Pasteur. Louis Pasteur. Anyone want to read about Louis Pasteur? Go ahead, Avery.
Louis Pasteur was a French microbiologist. He performed an experiment that disproved spontaneous generation.
So this guy also was like, hey, man, this can't be right. That ain't right. Yeah, that's cap, basically. And I forgot to say this. Francesco Radie, he's Italian. We should have said Francesco Radie. You gotta say it like that. And then Louis Pasteur is from France. Louis Pasteur. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so this guy, he also French microbiologist. He's like, you know what? That they can't be spontaneous. So he's gonna do something to prove it. Ready? Pasteur, in his experiment, Pasteur poured a broth into curved necked flasks. The necks prevented microorganisms from entering the flasks. He boiled the flasks to kill any microorganisms in the broth. After several days, Pasteur saw no microorganisms growing in the flasks. He then tipped the flask, allowing microorganisms living in the air to enter the broth. In a few days, microorganisms were growing in the flasks. Pasteur demonstrated that living things did not arise spontaneously from the broth. They grew from microorganisms in the air. So again, he had a hypothesis and had to conduct some testing to show it. Okay, and Louis Pasteur is also an important guy. You ever heard of pasteurized milk? Okay, your milk that you drink, if you drink milk, is pasteurized. It's a way to make it sanitary and stay good.
The cows lived in a pasture.
No, pasteurized. 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 Okay, named after this guy. You can learn more about that later. All right, number 1. Remember, how are we answering these people? Olivia, incomplete sentences. So I'm going to walk around and tell you if you need to continue writing the way you are or need to write it in a complete sentence. What is spontaneous generation? What is spontaneous generation? Anybody want to throw one out there? Go ahead, Avery, again.
Spontaneous generation is the idea that living things come from non-living things.
Okay, very good. Number 1, spontaneous generation is the idea that living things come from non-living things. I'll say it again, all right? Spontaneous generation is the idea that living things come from non-living things. Now, is this idea correct? Is it true? No, I don't want anybody to go home today and say, yeah, maggots come from meat. No, that's not true, okay? Or that straw can produce mice. That is not true.
It would be.
It's an idea that people held long ago because they didn't see it, right? They didn't see the flies laying their eggs. They didn't see the mice being born and then living in the straw, okay? So again, spontaneous generation is the idea that living things come from non-living things, or can come from non-living things. All right, number 2, who was Francesco Redi? Olivia.
Sorry. He was a Italian doctor.
Sure, there you go. I would go a little bit further. Francesco Redi was an Italian doctor. If you want, in the 17th century, who did not believe in spontaneous generation? He in fact performed an experiment to disprove it. Francesco Redi was an Italian doctor in the 17th century who did not believe in spontaneous generation. So you can see we've made advancements over the years, right? We're continually doing these things, continually changing our opinions on things based on science. More time to write about Francesco?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you a little bit more time. All right, number 3, why do flies often lay eggs on spoiled meat? Why do flies often lay eggs on spoiled meat? What do you think, Carter? Why do flies often lay eggs on spoiled meat? Yeah, there you go. Okay, so flies lay eggs on spoiled meat because the maggots feed on that. Their babies feed on that. That's what maggots are, fly larvae. Okay, so flies lay eggs on spoiled meat so the maggots can eat it. Okay, you don't have to write the question down again, just have to write your answer down. So, flies lay eggs on spoiled meat because maggots eat the meat. Pretty easy food source, right? Okay, there you go. You're hatched and now you get to eat. Yes.
But how would, since that I do have an answer for this, but I'm just asking you a question for a fact. How would the flies know where the food is if they come after the food is already placed? They didn't see it get placed.
What do you
They
think?
smell it. Yeah, they smell it, and that's how they indicate that it's rotted, and that's how
Absolutely.
they know when to place their larvae.
Absolutely. Flies, yep, good sense of smell. See them around things that smell very terrible, usually.
They won't is their nose, but their mouth is like a vacuum. I'm sorry.
You're okay, man. All right, number 4. What was the control for Redi's experiment? What was the control for Redi's experiment? It said there was a sentence that said this, I believe. What was the control? What do you think, Ryan? What was the control for Redi's experiment? Okay. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. Carry on.
The uncovered jars labeled A and C, figure 1 through 18.
There you go. All right. So I misspoke originally when I said it. The uncovered jars are the control. So the control for Radi's experiment were the uncovered jars. You could write that. Or the uncovered jars were the control for the Radi's experiment. Okay, uncovered. Originally I said it was the covered. I apologize. That was wrong. The uncovered jars are the control. Did you guys talk about control last year in Mrs.
Yes.
Benning? Control, you have your control group where you do nothing to it. You just leave it normal, right? Okay. What's the purpose of that? Why do you need to do that? Yeah, Avery?
So we know, so we can distinguish the effects from the actual experiment.
Yeah, good.
Like, if there was a piece of meat, right, and it's just a regular piece of meat.
Yep.
You can tell that it's different from the piece of meat, 5-day-old piece of meat, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's not the same.
Yep. Okay, that's a good way of putting it. Go ahead, Brock.
This really is it.
Well, then we'll get to it later
I
then.
do have an answer to what is control, because
Yep.
I did do a lot of experiments.
Okay, so why is it important to have a control? Because we kind of just answered it. Why is it
The
important?
control is important because that is what makes sure that your answer is correct and whether or not your answer is plausible, because if you were to know that the flies weren't, if you didn't know that flies did come to the open jars, if you just thought, hey, they may come to the open jars, and you didn't test it, you have no idea, which is why you control.
Okay, so that's kind of the way I kind of tried to get us to answer that. So pretty good job. It eliminates all the other variables, or it shows, okay, this is what it would be if we did nothing to it, right? So what happens if he just did the closed lid? Did that prove anything? I mean, not really, because you didn't show that the open lid has the maggots, right? Okay, so it's important to use a control. It's important to use a control to know that the variable you're testing is correct. Okay, that's number 5. Number 6, what did Pasteur's experiment show? What did Pasteur's experiment show? And I will just answer that one. Pasteur's experiment showed that living things don't spontaneously generate from non-living things. Or Pasteur's experiment showed that spontaneous generation is not real. Or you could say Pasteur's experiment disproved, D-I-S-P-R-O-V-E-D, spontaneous generation. That's probably the shortest way to put it. Pasteur's experiment disproved spontaneous generation.
Wait, Mr. Dayton, I have a question involving the fly experiment.
About what?
About Radi's experiment.
Okay, let's get to it in a little bit. Olivia? Number 5. Okay, why is it important to use control in an experiment? It is important to use a control in an experiment so you can tell what would happen if you do nothing to the what word am I looking for?
The jar, or the experiment.
The
natural way of life.
Yeah, the experiment. It is important to use a control so that you can see what happens if you do nothing to your experiment. Like, what was the control on our Benedict solution lab?
The regular water, how it was filled in, that would be the control.
There you go. The water with no sugar in it, right? Regular tap water with Benedict solution in it. Okay. We did nothing to it. All right. Questions on that? Did you want to say what you wanted to say?
Yeah, well, now it's to, first of all, it says problem after 5 and 6. It says mark by slides, forming in the times by
Oh.
mechanics by completely seal. I actually think I know the answer to it.
Oh yeah. What is that? What does it mean?
So, but this is what sparked up my original question. The answer is that the flies laid their eggs before they were sealed, and the maggots grew into flies.
Could
That's
be.
how you found the flies on the inside. But this is my question. So why would flies, if they know that it's not red meat, still lay it on the stink? Do maggots like feed off smell then?
Yep. And they
Why
can
would
feed
they
on
eat garbage?
other things too.
Because they're flies, that's what they do, it's a food source.
They can eat other things too. Yep. So they're attracted to very pungent smells. Okay. All right. With that, close your notebook. Put your your notebook can stay open. Put your science book below your seat. Stand up, stretch it out, walk around. I'll give you a minute before we get moving on to the next thing. Okay. So stand up, touch 3 red things in the room. Okay. And we'll get going. So,
Arby's worst enemy is
Arby's?
flies, because they have the meat.
There you go. Good one.
Oh, that's cheating.
Mr. Walters,
It's on the
no.
same thing. You can't touch this.
You got about 30 seconds.
I just got this So 1, 2, 3, 7, 9, 13.
1, 2.
Mr. Dayton.
Mhm.
Miller's experiment was about the atmosphere of the past and how it had amino acids and the right organic compounds.
Oh,
How
really?
would that affect, like if that were to happen again, but would it Earth kind of like regrow itself?
That I don't know. That's something you might be able to figure out. Awesome. I'll take it. All right, let's head back to your seat. So Faith just reminded me of something important. She handed me her Benedict solution lab report and her conclusion. Looks, I'm gonna show it. Looks very nice, nice and neat. Okay, and then the conclusion on the back. All right, remember this was due on Friday, really. So please get this done. Benedict solution lab report. Okay. Now you're gonna be taking some notes here today on cells. 3 main parts of a cell. So what did I say was our main goal today? Be able to tell the 3 main parts of all cells. These are all living cells. Got it? 3 main parts of a cell, and here they are. We have the cell membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus. Okay, cell membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus. Get that written down. Done? Thank you, sir. Okay, everybody got that written down? Okay, what are the three main parts of a cell? Raise your hand and tell me one of them. Go ahead, Brock.
The nucleus.
Nucleus. Wes, what's another one?
A cell membrane.
Cell membrane. What's the third one? Aiden.
The number 2 up there, because I don't know how to say that.
Cytoplasm. Very good.
Okay.
So those are the three main cells. Are you able to tell anybody the three main parts of a cell?
Yes.
Today? Okay, there you go. We're successful. We're going to learn more about them. Okay, that's more than just sit and get. We want you to be able to know what these things actually do. So the first one we're going to talk about is a cell membrane. A membrane, maybe you've heard about it. It's typically a layer that surrounds something. Okay, in this case, it's exactly that. All right, the cell membrane, and in the parentheses there, you see phospholipid bilayer. Phospholipid. Lipid, that word should sound somewhat familiar. It's been a while now since we've talked about macromolecules, but lipids are what? Lipids are not proteins, they're not carbs, they're not sugars, they are what, Lilia? Fats, okay, phospholipid bilayer. So that means it's made of phosphate and lipid and fats, okay? Bi, what does bi mean? The prefix bi, B-I. Dave. 2, yeah, very good. And then layer. A layer is something like, you know what a layer is, like a layer of dirt, layer of anything, really. Okay, so we have a phosphate, fatty, 2-layered membrane that surrounds every cell. Okay, if you want to, over there in parentheses, it also says plasma membrane. You might hear it called the plasma membrane as well. The cell membrane sometimes is referred to as a plasma membrane. Okay, like your plasma TV screen. Things can go through it. This has 3 important jobs. 3 very, very important jobs. Your cell membrane, all cell membranes. Okay, they protect the inside of a cell. Protection. I would underline protect. Protection. Okay. The inside of the cell contains very important things besides just the nucleus and the cytoplasm. It's got to be protected. The phospholipid bilayer, the cell membrane, provides that protection. It lets things, I'll save it for the third bullet point. Okay, so protection. The second bullet point you see here, it says supports and gives the cell its shape. Okay, otherwise, the cell would not have shape. It would be a blob of something that wouldn't even be able to be held together. It supports it, gives it structure. Okay, so we have protect, support, and give shape. All right, and then the third bullet point, obviously it's very important. It's one that you need to remember. This controls, the cell membrane controls movement of materials into and out of the cell. So controls movement in and out of the cell. All right, and that's where we're going to get into the diagram on your sheet there and the diagram that I've drawn on the board. Okay, so you're seeing 2 vocabulary words up there on that diagram and up on my diagram on the board over here. You have this word, hydrophobic. Remember we talked about phobias? What does phobia mean? Go ahead, Casey.
Fear.
Like a fear, right? And hydro, what does hydro mean? Go ahead, Abel.
Water.
Like water, right? Okay, so now a lot of these science words, sometimes they're very long and like hard to remember, but most of them make sense when you break it down on a like Latin roots or Greek roots level. So this is water fearing. Okay, then over here you see the same word twice, and up there you see the same word. It's pointing at two different things. It says hydrophilic. So we know hydro means water. What does philic mean? Philic. Who's heard of Philadelphia, the city? What's the nickname for? What's the nickname of Philadelphia?
Philly cheesesteak.
No, the nickname. You just said it under your breath. You just said it. What was it? The nickname of
Philly.
you said it before that. Go ahead.
The city of brotherly love.
City of brotherly love. That word, P-H-I-L, that root word, P-H-I-L, means love. So this is hydrophilic. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. This is how I remember that. Philic means love. Okay? So this is water loving. These are water loving. These are the lipids here. All right? And I've shown you up there on the board, and I will dive further into it. So that's my cell there. You see that? That blob? Okay, then I've taken a little cutout there, and I've pointed over here. That's what that membrane is made out of. Understand? These are lipids. This thing right here is a phospholipid. Why do they call it a bilayer? Why do they call it a bilayer? Take a look up there. Or right here. Why is it a bilayer? Somebody besides Brock is going to talk to me today. I know. And Avery. What do you think, Michaela, why do you think they call it a bilayer? I have a lipid here, or I have a lipid here, and a lipid here. Why is it a bilayer?
There's a layer of
What does bi mean again? Josh, maybe you can help her out.
there's 2 layers.
2 layers of lipids, right? Of phospholipid. Good. One of them is facing, I guess if you want to call it upward, and one of them is kind of facing downward. But one is facing out of the cell, and one is facing inside the cell, right? Does that make sense? So we have the water-loving portion facing out, where there is water outside of it, okay? And water facing in, where there's water inside of it. But what are these tails? These tails are hydrophobic. They're water-fearing. Can water be in here,
No.
in that layer? No. So it makes that layer. The water will be repelled either out or in. So water can come out or in. It can't dissolve that membrane though, right? That'd be a pretty bad membrane if it would be just dissolvable, right? Makes sense?
You'd
So
be
what happens
dead.
if the membrane dissolves?
What's that?
What happens if the membrane
Your cell would cease to exist.
and then it would die?
Well, that cell would die. You have billions and billions of cells.
So what happens if all of them?
If all of your cells died, you would definitely die.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay. But are we seeing how this works though? Are we seeing how this is on every cell? Now, every cell has this. I'm going to show this. 'Cause I'm recording this lesson because,
Oh,
okay, so there's my cell.
well, that's nice.
Now you get to look at it here and there. Okay. So we have the hydrophilic heads and the hydrophobic tails, which allows water to come in and out, but it doesn't allow it to dissolve that membrane, right? Not just water, too. Other important things need to come in and out of your cells.
Like the food.
Yeah. Carbohydrates. Okay. Sugars to fuel your cells. All right. Everybody good there? Yes? Okay. I hope so. All right. That's the cell membrane. Very important part. That's the outer layer, of the cell. Big thing out on the outside. Next, we have number 2. Aiden attempted to say, you want to try it again, Aiden?
Cytoplasm.
Cytoplasm. Very good. Cytoplasm is number 2. Now, it's not really a structure. It's more of what makes up the inside of a cell. All right. So I'm going to try to zoom in so you can see a little bit better. This is where most cell parts are located. And the cell parts in parentheses you see there are organelles. Here's how I think of organelles. What's inside your body? Like your stomach, your heart, your brain.
Water.
Internal organs.
They're organs, right? They're parts of your body. So think of like cells on a cellular level. These are like organs for a cell.
Organs.
Okay, now that your cell doesn't have a heart, doesn't have a stomach, doesn't have like your kidney, liver, I mean, but they have organelles that perform specific jobs, right? Like your stomach does a specific job. Your liver, your kidneys, they do specific jobs. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the cell parts. The organelles located in the cytoplasm. What is the cytoplasm, everybody? I'll tell you. The cytoplasm is just a jelly-like substance that fills the cell. It's made up of mostly water. So, I'm writing cytoplasm here. You can point to basically any portion of the cell,
Except for
and
the
it's all
nucleus.
cytoplasm.
Except
Okay?
for the nucleus.
Right. You don't want to point at any of the organelles. We haven't put any organelles in here yet. Does that make sense? Okay, it's made up of like a jelly-like substance. That's where the organelles sit. They sit down in that jelly. They just plop right there. And they perform their organelle duties. Yes, I know I made a funny noise there. Okay, most of the activities in the cell take place here, in the cytoplasm. Now, maybe to help you remember, I think of plasma, like plasma, like a gooey, goopy substance, right? That's like between liquid and solid. So cytoplasm has plasma in it, or it's close to plasma, right? I mean, you can memorize these any way you want, but that's just how it helps me.
Ectoplasm.
Cycle.
Okay, Brock, what do you got?
I have actually done like a Play-Doh experiment of this, so I actually kind of remember some of these. I
Nice.
can't remember the name of the other parts.
We will get to that later. Maybe you can teach that lesson for us.
Yeah, I know what they look like. They're kind of like long tubes and then some
Yep.
fatter.
So we'll get to that. Then here, the third one we're going to talk about today, and arguably the most important, is the nucleus. The nucleus is the control center of the cell. Okay? It controls life processes and reproduction. Okay? And then off on the arrow there, it says, what is cancer? We'll get to that. But the nucleus determines when that cell is going to reproduce. Yes, your cells have to reproduce, make more cells. Okay? All of them, right? New tissues. Constantly happening. Constantly. All right, number 2 says separated from the cytoplasm. It is not one with the cytoplasm. It has a nuclear membrane. So here's my nucleus right here. Big old control center. And then, so the whole thing is the nucleus. Nucleus. And then it also has a membrane like the cell does right here. This is its membrane. Nuclear membrane. Pretty sweet, right? Okay, there you go. And the third part is it contains DNA. We talked about DNA, the 4 nucleotides, A and T and C and G. A equals adenine, T equals thymine, C equals cytosine, and G equals guanine. So the DNA is in here. I'm just drawing squiggles because I don't want to get into the structure of the DNA. It contains the genetic material, the genetic code that tells all of your cells how to be, what to do. Okay? The nucleus, very, very important part of the cell. You could consider it the brain of the cell. So your cell doesn't have an actual brain, but this is considered the brain of the cell.
Like a drill tone.
All right, and then that arrow that says, what is cancer? Who knows what cancer is? Obviously, you probably, I'm assuming, well, I shouldn't assume. Many people have been affected by it, or you know somebody who's been affected by it. Sit down, but sit down. Casey, what do you got?
All I know about cancer is there's different types of cancers. Like my grandma has breast cancer and
Yep.
whatever. Was it Miss Johnson that has cancer?
She had skin cancer?
Yeah.
Or I can't remember what she
It's,
had.
it's like a type of sickness that is happening around your body.
Uh-huh. And what is actually what is actually happening in cancer? Avery.
It's killing cells inside your body.
So good cells are being killed, but cancer You want to go and give it a shot at it?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
So
Make it quick.
cancer,
Go.
cancer is when your cells get diseased and they are not able to perform their jobs right. They are either cut up into smaller parts so that they cannot perform right, or they are just like completely disintegrated from your body.
So here,
One of them-
I'm gonna cut you off right there. So, sorry, thank you, I appreciate it. So, cancer. Cancer comes from cancer cells. Cancer cells continually reproduce and they never stop, right? They can make cancer spots in your body, tumors in your body, okay? And they continually go. Why is that right there? Because the nucleus of your cells, they know when to stop making more, right? They need to control. If you were to make too many cells, that is not a good thing. That's what cancer is. There's cancer cells that continually reproduce, keep reproducing, and spread throughout your body, okay? So that's why if someone gets breast cancer, it can spread throughout the rest of their body, okay? The cells continually reproducing. That's what cancer is. So that's why nucleus is an important part of the cell. It controls that life process and reproduction. Okay? Okay. Everybody with me here? Gotta hold it for now. We gotta keep moving on. Sorry. All right. And here is the quick diagram of a cell that you can draw. Okay? Kind of like what I did on the board. The cytoplasm fills everything. The cell membrane surrounds the outside. The nucleus is the control center. We're going to get way deeper into this. These lines are just showing that the cell has depth and width. Okay, you don't necessarily need to include that. If you want to draw what I drew up here, go for it. Okay, but that is just a simple diagram of the cell. Okay, and with that, we are out of here. Okay, we are out of here. Does anybody want
A Jolly Rancher?
a copy of the notes because they feel that
I'll take a copy of that.
Just in case. So
if you want to grab it, but if you feel like you took good notes, you don't need to. But there's my diagram on the board. Yep. Oh, in that bin on my desk. Otherwise, you gotta head out. I'm sorry I kept you about 30 or 40 seconds late. Goodbye. All right, head on out. Want one of these? Or you good? Okay, if you want one, go ahead and take one. Okay? No?
Like my back started hurting. And I was like,
the cancer itself, but
okay, good. But if you're
it actually can create bigger clots and then marks. And then it's make it
I'm not even joking.
You need to talk to somebody.
Thank you.
All right, here we go.
I can't even.
What if it's like it's
Come on in, get your. You guys want a copy of that?
Why couldn't you just give this to us? in the-
Because you gotta be able to take notes, everybody. All right, I gotta,
Mr. Dayton, do you want me to give you the conclusion?
yeah, please.
Oh, my conclusion was in Google stuff.